Hey everyone, it's Alex, and it's time for another division preview for the 2025 NFL season. Today, we're talking about the NFC East, a division that's so competitive all the time. Again, no repeat division winners since the early 2000s. It's been 20 years since a team has won this division in back-to-back seasons. Does it happen this year with the reigning Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles? Or will we see someone else steal the division crown for another year? Only one way to find out. Let's go ahead and talk about it right now. Now, before we go ahead and talk about this team by team, I want to go ahead and overview the scheduling for this division because, again, the teams play a very similar schedule throughout the year. Each team in the division will play their 6 division games. That's a given. The 2 rotational divisions that they're playing this year, the NFC North and the AFC West. Not too bad. A tough division in the NFC North and another tough division in the AFC West, but we'll see if those top division teams here in the NFC East can square up. It leads to this division having a pretty tough schedule. The Giants coming into this season with the hardest schedule in the league. And then let's take the Giants, for example, who finished at the bottom of the NFC East this last year. They'll be at home against the San Francisco 49ers, who finished last in the NFC West this year. And then they'll be on the road against the New Orleans Saints and the New England Patriots, the 2 teams who finished last in their respective divisions this season. And, of course, that can be applied to the other teams in the division as well. But that's how the schedule works out for the NFC East. Let's jump into the team-by-team preview. We're going to start with the Dallas Cowboys, and I'm recording this about an hour after a certain transaction, is how I'll get to in just a moment. But this team feels like they're in a state of limbo. It doesn't feel like they're really wanting to compete, but it feels like they don't want to fully blow it up and go for a full-scale rebuild yet. I think Jerry Jones is really trying to hang on to the little bit of star power that he has. When I say little bit of star power that he has left, I mean it because, well, they just traded away Micah Parsons to the Green Bay Packers, and it is a full-scale panic for Cowboys fans right now, as that, I think, is the nail in the coffin for what they hope to accomplish this season. I mean, looking at the roster now, more than ever, really doesn't inspire confidence. I'm going to tell you this right now. They have Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, Deron Bland, Trayvon Diggs. That's about it. George Pickens. But there is not a lot on this roster that inspires confidence. And it's a tough schedule that this team has to play, too. Their top running back's going to be Javonte Williams after letting Rico Dowdle walk in the offseason. They fired Mike McCarthy. They're going to roll with Brian Schottenheimer, an in-house option, too. There's just a lot of puzzling moves in the offseason that really doesn't inspire confidence for the Cowboys this season. I don't see it going well for this team this year. I really don't. Because you look at the schedule before them, and again, because of the Cowboys, they're thrust into a lot of primetime opportunities. Of course, opening the season against the Eagles in their banner ceremony, primetime games in gold, other standalone games in orange. They're playing on both Thanksgiving and Christmas this year. And to make matters worse, thinking about recent events, they're going to have to play at home against Micah Parsons and the Packers week 4 on Sunday Night Football. It has been a nightmare offseason for the Dallas Cowboys, and it's just going to get worse. And again, I made all these picks and all these predictions before this happened. It probably maybe gets worse than 6-11, which I thought was probably a little on the low side this year, but it might get a little worse than that. Like, it's really tough. I had him, pulling an upset against the Commanders week 7. I don't even know if that happens anymore. Like, we're at a point now where I feel like the Cowboys are going to be in a complete tailspin, and I think they're going to really struggle this year. I have them at 6-11, but that floor probably drops down to 4 wins, 3 wins maybe. Because, the schedule's hard. They got to play the NFC North, which, as it stands right now, before the trade with Micah Parsons, I didn't have them winning a game against that division. I had them winning just 1 game against the AFC West. It's it's not looking good for Green Bay. No, not Green Bay. It's looking good for Green Bay. It ain't looking good for Dallas. I just, this feels like it's going to be a nightmare season, as if the true Dallas sports, and I'm not talking about the Cowboy fans who are also Laker and Yankee fans. I'm talking about the Cowboy fans who are also Mavericks, Stars, Rangers fans. It's been a rough go the last 6-7 months, with them first losing Luka Doncic. The Dallas Stars, of course, blowing it again in the Western Conference Finals. And then now losing Micah Parsons. It's been a rough go for Dallas sports fans as of late. And it's going to be a long season for Cowboys fans. I have them at 6 wins. Pivoting to a team that is expressing extreme joy in the Micah Parsons trade right now, the Philadelphia Eagles. Not only that, they're coming off a Super Bowl championship. I mean, they're coming off of destroying the Chiefs, ruining their three-peat bid. They're on cloud 9 right now, and for good reason. This roster is absolutely stacked. And you could talk to certain people. Maybe they got a little bit better or a little bit worse, but regardless, the team is still going to be competing for a Super Bowl this year. Jalen Hurts, a quarterback, he doesn't need to be one of the best quarterbacks in the league. Some of the people in Philadelphia really do believe that Jalen Hurts is one of the best quarterbacks in the league, but he doesn't need to perform at a top 5 quarterback level to be successful with the roster around him. A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith are back for another year. Saquon Barkley coming off one of the great running back seasons of all time, leading that team to a Super Bowl. Though if they do get back, I do hope he gets his Super Bowl touchdown. Dallas Goedert is still a good tight end. And I think that defense is still really good. They did lose Josh Sweat in the offseason, which does hurt. That's the biggest departure. But, they still have Zach Bond and Nakobe Dean. There's Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, who both came into their own. So losing Darius Slay doesn't really feel like that big of a loss, as both those guys are really coming to their own. And then Nick Sirianni's still a competent head coach. I mean, this roster is loaded again this year. They're able to keep the gang around for another year. And I think they're going to be a dominant force in the NFC again. I think they're the top team and I think they're going to be a dominant force in the NFC again. They are the team to beat, hands down. I think they're going to be competing for the number 1 seed again. I think they get the number 1 seed again. And they have a ton of primetime games. 6 of them, to be exact, those marked in gold here. And then they have that Saturday game against Washington. I mean, it's just, there is a lot to like about this Philly team. And despite maybe a tough schedule, they got to go on the road to Kansas City, on the road to Tampa Bay, on the road to Green Bay, on the road to Buffalo, to Washington. There's a lot of tough road games here, but it's the Philadelphia Eagles. They're coming off a Super Bowl championship. This is going to be another successful season. I think they get 13 wins. I think maybe they slip a little bit at the end against Buffalo and Washington, but I think they're going to be a really, really dominant force throughout this season. It's going to be a really fun season for Eagles fans. I think that they have a very good chance to cruise to another division title. They're the team to beat in the division. They're the team to beat in the conference. I mean, everything's going right for the Eagles right now. And so I think it stays the same. I think they win 13 games this year. This is going to be a dominant Eagles squad. And now we're moving on to a team who's once again still trying to find their identity. The New York Giants. This is a really interesting team. And the fact that maybe they're not as bad as what their record could end up being this season, but it's going to be a long season for the Giants because, again, they have the hardest schedule in the league. And so, when you have Russell Wilson as your starting quarterback, basically treating Jackson Dart as a backup, this is his learning season. They're going to be some growing pains this year. I think Tyrone Tracy found his footing last year. I think Malik Neighbors is a great receiver. Daboll isn't a terrible head coach, so he might be on the hot seat considering how they performed over the last handful of years. But I think that Jackson Dart has the pieces around him, the veteran leadership, and Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston, guys who have experience to probably learn a lot in this rookie season if he doesn't start very much. And their defense isn't awful. I like this front seven. Dexter Lawrence, Brian Burns, Kayvon Thibodeau. I like those guys up front for the Giants. I think it's just going to be tough sledding with the schedule they have this season. And can they get the maximum potential and performance out of the guys on their roster? That's the big question to me, as with several other teams on the year, because the schedule, again, is really brutal. And unfortunately, I don't think it's going to go well for the Giants this year. I think they get 3 wins out of this schedule. It is very, very hard. Again, that NFC North, AFC West schedule is tough, but not to mention you have to play Philadelphia and Washington 4 times this year. They get a late bye. I mean, it's just, I feel like the wheels are going to come off the bus for the Giants early. And they may be competitive in a lot of these games, but I just feel like they're not going to be complete enough to really threaten anything special. So I have them at their floor, which is 3 wins. I think they get that game against New Orleans. I think they maybe split with Dallas at the end of the year. I think they go out and beat the Patriots on the road, but it's hard when you have to play 2 divisions who I think have 4 competent organizations. There really aren't any warm-up games. There aren't any toss-ups. They're being thrown into the fire this season, and who knows? Maybe they have the building blocks on the roster and use this tough schedule as a rough season to maybe try and see if they can get the number 1 overall pick and find a defensive star and a skill position player, find someone to help build their roster for next season. But as it stands right now, I really just have a hard time finding more than 3 wins on this roster for the New York Giants. And finally, we're going to go ahead and talk about the surprise team of the season last year, the Washington Commanders. I mean, talk about a season from heaven. I mean, this was exactly what Washington wanted after finishing 4-13 in 2023. They're going to go out and go 12-5, and not only do that and make the playoffs, but they're going to win their first playoff game in 20 years, and then go out and beat the number 1 seed in the conference, who finished 15-2 in the regular season, and beat them in their building to get to the NFC Championship game. This past season was absolutely everything Commanders fans wanted, and then some. It wasn't just meeting expectations. It wasn't even just exceeding expectations. It was exceeding expectations with flying colors. It was the dream season, even if they didn't make it to the Super Bowl or win it at all. Like, they were still one of the final 4 teams standing at the end of the year. And it's all thanks to their quarterback, Jaden Daniels, who had one of the great rookie campaigns of all time. Now, the big question to me is, can he replicate that? Because there are people who are putting him in top 5 quarterback conversations already. If the bar is that high after his rookie season, can he get into that top 3 conversation? That's the big question for Jaden Daniels. The thing is, when you're holding him to this type of a standard, even if he plays at the top 10 level this season, maybe it feels like a disappointment and a step back. He hasn't left himself a lot of room, and so the bar's been set for Jaden Daniels. There isn't like an improvement season. This is it. He's already at where people want him to be. It's huge that they were able to get Terry McLaurin signed again after all those contract disputes. That is massive to keep the connection that felt like the go-to for Jaden Daniels this past season. I think that that's really important. Deebo Samuel's a nice addition for a speedster who can really get outside and just a dynamic playmaker. Zach Ertz, while he might be a little old, he still had a really nice season last year and was a great safety blanket for Jaden Daniels. The only thing that I'm going to be really interested in offensively is how do they respond with Austin Eckler as their top running back now, with Brian Robinson leaving to San Francisco. I'm really interested to see how the running game performs. And this team also has, the veteran presence on this team is very noticeable with their linebacking core consisting of Bobby Wagner and Von Miller and they have Marshawn Lattimore in the backfield now, trying to have a full season of good performance for Washington as they acquired him at the trade deadline last year. So I think that there's a lot of veteran pieces. We'll see if there's a nice blend like there was last year of the new and the old. But I think the biggest question for Washington is, did they use up all their luck last season with the amount of comeback wins that they had, a lot of miracles? Did they use up all their luck? Now with a year on film, does Jaden Daniels have a sophomore slump similar to Stroud, where he's still an above-average quarterback, but isn't wowing everyone like he did last year? The big question, again, is does it all catch up to them, or are they just that clutch? I think they're still going to be a really competent team. The thing is, I don't think it's going to come in the form of a bunch of comeback wins and improbable finishes. I think that we got a lot of those last year. I don't see them having like 3 or 4 of them like they did last year. Like, I mean, come on. A Hail Mary, 5 turnovers and beating Philly. I mean, whatever the hell happened in their game against Dallas, even though they still lost that game. I mean, whatever the hell happened there. There was a lot of moments. I don't think it's going to happen because they're going to be prepared and ready to take on some of this competition. I think they start the season out real hot, going 5-1 to start the season. 2 primetime games included as well. They have 5 primetime games. Not only that, but they have 3 other windows where they're the only team playing. They have an international game in Madrid. They're playing on Christmas. They got that Saturday doubleheader against the Eagles. I think that they're going to be a really good team this season, and they're going to really show it under the lights. There's a lot more pressure on Washington this season, so I don't think that they have the magical season like they did last year, but I still think that they're a very competent team in the NFC. They're a force. They're a team to be feared. I think they can possibly get to 13 wins because they could very well go ahead and beat Dallas, especially now that Micah Parsons is out of that team. But, if there is a sophomore slump and teams kind of figured out what Washington ran last year and were able to combat and play to them pretty well, I don't think they win less than 8 games. I think that they have a good talent group to be a competent team. And right now, as it stands, I have them at 11 wins for 2025. And I feel like that's a fair assessment for the Washington Commanders. Final division standings, I think this is the year that Philadelphia repeats and breaks the streak. If anyone is to keep the non-consecutive years of division champion streak going for the NFC East, I think that Washington would be the one to win the division. But I think both Philly and Washington make the playoffs. I think Philly is the team to beat in the NFC. They get the number 1 seed, home field advantage throughout the NFC playoffs. And I think Washington gets the top wildcard seed this season at 11-6. So both those 2 teams will be much to be feared, but I think Dallas and New York are going to be at the bottom of this division. Only time will tell to see what happens. And so there you have it. Those are my predictions. Do you think I nailed it on the head, or do you think I'm way off? Who do you think wins the NFC East? Please let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. If you liked the video, please give it a like. If you really liked it, please hit that subscribe button for me. That really helps the channel out a lot. And, that's all I've got. I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.